I still remember that electrifying moment as if it were splashed in neon across my mind. The moment I discovered that our entire house savings, the hard-won nest egg we had both dreamed would secure our future, had been spent on a lavish trip abroad with her affair partner. In those first 100 heartbeats, every shared hope, every whispered promise, and every painstaking effort we had invested together shattered into a million pieces. The betrayal was a violent shock that left me gasping in disbelief, my heart pounding with a mix of agony and a fierce, burning resolve. I vowed then that if she could squander our dreams on a secret escapade, I would reclaim my future by building a life that was solely mine, starting by buying a house without her ever knowing. For years, I had envisioned that our savings would one day secure a beautiful home, a sanctuary where we'd create memories, raise a family, and build a legacy together. Every sacrifice at work, every extra hour spent budgeting and planning, was dedicated to that future. I took pride in the financial stability we were slowly constructing. It wasn't just about money, it was about the promise of a shared dream. I believed that our joint effort would yield a home that reflected our love and commitment, a fortress against life's uncertainties. But somewhere along the way, the foundation of that dream began to crack, small fissures that I had dismissed as temporary hardships. I started noticing subtle changes in her behavior long before the final revelation. There were nights when she'd receive mysterious phone calls, and mornings when she'd leave the house with an air of secret determination. I brushed off those moments as stress from work or the result of minor disagreements. Deep down, however, a nagging feeling had begun to creep in, a whisper that something was amiss, that the dreams we shared were not as secure as I had believed. I trusted her completely. I never imagined that the very savings we had nurtured with joint effort could be diverted so callously. Yet, when I opened our bank statements one quiet evening, the truth unfolded before my eyes like a cruel twist of fate. Every cent earmarked for our dream home had vanished. The shock was overwhelming. I sat down at our dining table, the same table where we had celebrated countless anniversaries and shared hopes for the future, and stared at the stark numbers on the screen. A heavy silence filled the room, broken only by the distant hum of the refrigerator. In that moment, I felt an intense mixture of betrayal and humiliation. It wasn't just about the money, it was about the trust we had built over years, the unspoken understanding that our future was a joint venture. My wife, the woman I had believed to be my partner in every sense, had used our shared resources to fund her own desires, leaving our future in ruins. The realization plunged me into a state of numb disbelief. I spent hours retracing every financial transaction, every clue that might have hinted at what was coming, yet nothing had prepared me for this devastation. My mind raced as I wondered when things had started to fall apart. Was it a gradual erosion of trust, or had this been a calculated move all along? I felt as if the life we had built together had been nothing more than a fragile illusion, easily shattered by her selfish choices. The savings we had worked so hard to accumulate were gone, and with them the dream of a secure home, a stable future, and the sense of belonging that money had represented. That night, as darkness enveloped the empty halls of our once vibrant home, I sat alone in my study, the silence echoing the weight of my shattered hopes. I grabbed an old leather-bound journal, one I had used to record dreams and plans in better times, and began to write. Every word was a release, a desperate attempt to make sense of the betrayal that now defined my reality. I poured out my pain, my anger, and the slow dawning of a realization. If she had chosen to squander our future for a fleeting thrill, then I must reclaim mine. In that solitary act of writing, amidst tears and raw emotion, I vowed that I would rebuild my life from the wreckage. I would use the remnants of our savings, secured by a decision I had made long ago, to create a future that was solely mine. I would buy a house, not as a symbol of revenge, but as a monument to my resilience and determination. In those initial moments of heartache, as I wrestled with the bitter taste of betrayal and the echo of lost dreams, I understood that life had handed me a choice: to remain mired in sorrow or to rise, rebuild, and redefine my own destiny. That choice, made in the quiet solitude of an empty house, marked the beginning of a transformation that would soon take me down a path of self-discovery, financial empowerment, and the reclaiming of my true worth. And so, with a heavy heart but a spark of defiant hope, I stepped away from the life we once shared, ready to forge a new future on my own terms, to build a home that would stand as a testament to the fact that even the deepest betrayals can give way to a brilliant, unyielding rebirth. In the immediate aftermath of that crushing discovery, I fell into a whirlwind of shock and determination that reshaped every part of my existence. For days I was caught in an unyielding cycle of emotional turmoil, a maelstrom of betrayal, anger, and a desperate need to understand how everything we had built together could crumble so easily. I spent long hours in the quiet of our now empty home, wandering from room to room as if searching for remnants of a shared past that had suddenly turned to ash. The silence was deafening. Every picture on the wall, every creak of the floor, seemed to whisper memories of a time when our future was a joint promise. Now, the harsh reality was that our house savings, the financial foundation of all those dreams, had been spent on a lavish trip with her affair partner. I remember vividly the first time I reread our bank statements. I sat at our old oak dining table, the one that had hosted laughter, celebrations, and quiet evenings of whispered planning. The numbers glowed starkly on the screen, each withdrawal a brutal confirmation of what I had feared. Every penny earmarked for the purchase of our dream home was gone. I felt a surge of numb disbelief mingled with a burning anger that I could barely contain. Questions raced through my mind. When had I missed the warning signs? Had I been so blinded by trust and hope that I failed to see her secret communications, the hushed phone calls, and the subtle shifts in her demeanor? That night, as I sat in the dim light, I began to piece together every small detail that now, in hindsight, seemed like a silent alarm. And with each painful realization, a new resolve was kindling within me. I would not be left with nothing. If she could destroy the future we had planned, then I would rebuild mine, on my own terms. The first step in that journey was confronting the betrayal head-on. I made a point of reviewing every document meticulously, confirming the transactions and understanding the timeline of events. I spent days poring over financial records, scribbling notes on sticky papers, and trying to discern a pattern. It was in those hours of solitary scrutiny that I also recalled a secret decision I had made long ago, a decision born out of a quiet, persistent doubt about our shared future. I had cashed out my share of the savings, safeguarding a portion of my future independently. That foresight, which at the time had been wrapped in fear and a sense of inevitability, now shone like a beacon amid the darkness. Even though our joint funds were decimated by her reckless indulgence, I realized I was not left penniless. I still had the means to rebuild, if only I could muster the will to transform my pain into purpose. With that grim confirmation fueling my resolve, I began to outline a plan for a new beginning. I grabbed a fresh notebook and, with a mixture of trembling hands and determined strokes, started to map out my goals. I wrote down every dream I had ever postponed, the modest home I had always yearned for, the financial stability I had once envisioned, and the personal freedoms I had long sacrificed. I drafted a roadmap that began with reclaiming what was rightfully mine, a new house bought entirely in my name. The act of purchasing a home after everything that had transpired wasn't just about acquiring property. It was a declaration that I was taking back control of my life. Each line I wrote was a promise to myself that I would not allow her betrayal to define my future. Emboldened by this newfound clarity, I sought professional advice to secure my financial footing. I reached out to a trusted financial advisor who had been a silent witness to my long hours of work and sacrifice. Over multiple sessions, we reviewed my portfolio, rebalanced my investments, and discussed new opportunities that would help me grow the money I had saved. Every meeting was a reaffirmation that while our joint dream had been shattered, my personal financial security was still intact, and it was growing. I learned about the benefits of diversification, the potential in emerging markets, and the importance of having a personal safety net. Each strategy session bolstered my confidence, turning my despair into a concrete plan of action. I began redirecting my funds into new ventures that promised stability and growth, and with every positive update, I felt a small measure of vindication that I was on the right path. Simultaneously, I threw myself into my work with a relentless drive to prove my worth. My professional life, once a quiet backdrop to our shared aspirations, transformed into the arena where I would demonstrate my capabilities. I took on challenging projects, volunteered for leadership roles, and began pitching innovative ideas that had long been simmering beneath the surface. Late nights at the office, once marked by exhaustion and resignation, became sessions of creative breakthroughs and strategic planning. Every successful project, every nod of approval from my superiors, was a small, silent triumph, a brick in the new foundation of my self-respect. I found that the more I focused on my career, the more I reclaimed a part of myself that I had nearly lost in the turbulence of betrayal. I was not going to let her actions dictate my professional future. Instead, I was determined to build an empire that would stand as a testament to my resilience and ambition. Yet, amidst these practical steps, the emotional fallout of the betrayal continued to swirl inside me like a relentless storm. The image of her confession, of the cold, indifferent way she had justified spending our savings on her secret escapade, haunted my thoughts. I found myself lying awake in the dark, overwhelmed by a complex cocktail of emotions: anger, profound sadness, and a gnawing sense of betrayal that made every memory a painful reminder of what had been lost. On those long, lonely nights, I sought solace in therapy. I met with a compassionate counselor who specialized in relationship trauma, and through countless sessions, I began to untangle the tangled web of my emotions. I learned that while the pain was excruciating, it could also be a powerful catalyst for growth. My therapist taught me that forgiveness, when embraced as a means to free oneself rather than as an excuse for further hurt, could be a stepping stone to reclaiming my identity. Gradually, I learned to accept that her actions were a reflection of her own fractured dreams, and that my worth was not diminished by her choices. Each session, every tear shed in the quiet sanctuary of the therapy room, chipped away at the overwhelming despair, replacing it with a slow, steady resolve. During these therapeutic sessions, I began to realize that my identity had been subsumed by the collective dream we once shared, a dream that had been built on compromise, sacrifice, and ultimately betrayal. I remembered the countless nights when I had set aside my own desires to support our future, when I had invested so much of myself in the hope of a better tomorrow. Now, in the stark light of betrayal, I understood that I had to reclaim the person I once was, a man of ambition, creativity, and unwavering self-worth. I started to focus on my passions that had been neglected for far too long: the art of writing, the solace of long walks in nature, the joy of quiet moments spent with a book in hand. I allowed myself to grieve for the loss of our shared dreams, but I also began to see that this heartbreak was a necessary precursor to a profound personal renaissance. Encouraged by the support of friends and the insights from therapy, I began to rebuild my social circle with people who valued authenticity and mutual respect. I reconnected with old friends, those who had known me before our lives became intertwined in a web of unrealistic expectations, and I sought out new relationships that celebrated individuality and strength. In intimate gatherings over coffee and casual dinners in quiet restaurants, I shared my story with raw honesty. The responses were a mixture of empathy, encouragement, and admiration. I realized that my journey of transformation resonated with many who had faced similar betrayals, and that by sharing my truth, I was not only healing myself but also inspiring others to find their own path to recovery. In addition to nurturing my emotional and social well-being, I also embarked on a journey of creative exploration. I returned to painting, a hobby I had abandoned in the chaos of our shared struggles, and found that every brushstroke on a blank canvas was an act of liberation. I painted not just scenes of beauty, but abstract expressions of my inner turmoil and the slow, relentless process of healing. Each finished piece became a symbol of my resilience, a visual testament to the transformation of pain into beauty. I even started writing a blog where I recounted my experiences with brutal honesty, sharing the highs and lows of my journey in hopes that others might find solace in my words. The outpouring of support from readers, many of whom confessed that my story mirrored their own struggles, filled me with a renewed sense of purpose and a determination to continue forging my own destiny. Throughout these months, I maintained a disciplined routine that balanced every aspect of my life. Mornings were dedicated to physical renewal, a time for long meditative runs that cleared my mind and set the tone for the day. Afternoons were reserved for work, where I threw myself into my projects with a fierce, unwavering focus. Evenings became sacred time for reflection and creativity, hours spent journaling my thoughts, reading inspiring literature, and connecting with supportive friends. Every day, I took small but deliberate steps toward building a future that was entirely my own, a future where I would no longer be defined by betrayal, but by the strength and resilience I had cultivated through hardship. With each passing week, the cumulative effect of these changes began to manifest in every corner of my life. My professional endeavors started to show tangible results, with new contracts and opportunities that validated the long hours of hard work and determination. My financial security grew steadily as I reinvested wisely and diversified my income streams. And most importantly, I felt a deep, transformative shift within myself. A quiet certainty that my worth was not tied to someone else's choices, but was an inherent part of who I was. Every small victory, every moment of genuine connection with friends, was a stepping stone that led me closer to a future filled with promise and self-respect. I began to envision a new horizon, a life where I would not only rebuild what had been lost but would soar to heights I had never dared to dream of before. I set new personal and professional goals, ambitious projects that would challenge me, and creative pursuits that would bring color to my days. I explored opportunities to further my education, to expand my skill set, and to invest in ventures that aligned with my passions. Every goal was a declaration. I was in control of my destiny, and I would no longer let betrayal dictate my future. I felt empowered by the knowledge that I had taken every necessary step to secure my independence, and that my life was now a blank canvas, waiting for me to paint it with the vibrant hues of ambition, resilience, and hope. Even as the echoes of that fateful night continued to fade into the background, I remained aware that healing was an ongoing process. There were still moments, quiet, unexpected flashes in the middle of a busy day, when the pain of betrayal would resurface, a stark reminder of the journey I had endured. But each time, I met those moments with the strength and clarity I had cultivated through months of hard work and introspection. I learned to embrace the vulnerability that came with growth, to see every tear as a testament to my journey rather than a mark of defeat. And with that mindset, I continued to move forward, confident that the future was mine to shape, no matter how uncertain it might seem. I also began to share my journey more publicly, speaking at small local events and participating in discussions about resilience and the power of personal transformation. In these moments, I found that my story resonated deeply with others, many of whom had faced similar betrayals or had felt marginalized by the decisions of those they trusted. Their encouraging words, their shared experiences, and the genuine connections we forged provided a powerful reminder that while the road to healing was long and winding, it was also a journey that we did not have to walk alone. This collective strength further affirmed my belief that every setback was merely a precursor to a greater comeback, and that my future was filled with endless possibilities. As the weeks melded into months, the foundation of my new life became increasingly solid. I finalized plans for purchasing a modest home, a place that would be a symbol of my newfound independence and a tangible reminder that I was no longer tethered to a past defined by betrayal. I spent time researching neighborhoods, consulting with real estate agents, and visiting potential properties until I found a space that resonated with my vision. Every conversation, every decision made during that process reinforced my commitment to build a future that was entirely my own, a sanctuary where the echoes of my past would be replaced by the promise of new beginnings. Every step of this arduous journey brought me closer to understanding that my worth was measured not by the mistakes of those who had let me down, but by the strength I summoned to rise above them. I had transformed the raw, searing pain of betrayal into a driving force, a catalyst that propelled me toward a future filled with purpose and self-reliance. I learned that true healing comes from within, from the quiet moments of introspection, from the relentless pursuit of personal and professional growth, and from the willingness to embrace vulnerability as a source of strength. Now, as I stand at the threshold of this new chapter, where every day is a testament to the power of resilience and every small victory is a step toward a promising future, I feel a deep, abiding sense of gratitude. Gratitude for the lessons learned, for the unwavering support of those who believed in me, and for the inner strength that has carried me through the darkest moments. The journey has been long and filled with obstacles, yet each challenge has shaped me into a person who is more determined, more self-aware, and more capable than I ever imagined. That morning, as the sun broke over the skyline and cast long golden rays across the city, I sat in my new office, a space I'd built with my own two hands, fueled by years of quiet determination and a fierce desire for redemption. Every detail around me, from the sleek modern design of the conference room to the inspiring quotes that adorned the walls, stood as a testament to the journey I'd taken after she left me for a wealthy man. I'd once believed that our lives were forever intertwined, that we would share every triumph and every setback. But when she walked away with someone who represented a world I could never compete with, something inside me snapped. Instead of sinking into despair, I vowed to build a future so radiant that even she, watching from the sidelines, would have no choice but to recognize my worth. It hadn't been an easy journey. In the first few months after her departure, I found myself haunted by a sense of emptiness and betrayal. Every familiar corner of our shared home carried memories of laughter and love, now tainted by her betrayal. I spent long, sleepless nights pacing those halls, questioning every decision I'd ever made. But amid the pain, I also discovered something unexpected: the strength to start anew. I began to pour every ounce of hurt and anger into my work, determined to turn my shattered world into a stepping stone for my success. I re-examined my entire professional trajectory with a fresh perspective, analyzing missed opportunities, refining business strategies, and ultimately setting my sights on something audacious: to buy the company where her new lover worked. I can still remember the first time I truly contemplated it. I sat alone in my study, a storm of conflicting emotions swirling inside me. On one hand, there was the searing sting of betrayal, of knowing that the man she had chosen to elevate her status was someone I had been told was beyond my reach. On the other, there was a spark, a quiet determination that whispered I had something to prove not just to her but to myself. I realized that every ounce of the success I'd built over the years, every small victory at work, was now a powerful reminder that I was capable of rising from the ashes of our crumbling past. I decided then that I would not let her victory become mine. I would seize control of the narrative entirely. I would buy the company he worked for. The idea took root slowly, nurtured by countless hours of research and relentless determination. I began by immersing myself in every detail of the business, its financial statements, market trends, competitive landscape, and growth potential. I met with industry experts, attended seminars, and even shadowed some of the company's lower-level operations to get a first-hand look at what made it tick. Each meeting, each data point, built a picture in my mind of a company ripe for transformation. A company whose future I could shape if only I had the resources. And so, I started quietly laying the groundwork. I worked late nights, often until the early hours of the morning, fueled by a blend of caffeine and a burning desire to prove my worth. I refined business plans, reached out to financial advisors, and began to explore investment opportunities that would enable me to amass the necessary capital. Every successful project at my own company, every accolade or nod of approval from a colleague, became a building block in the larger structure of my ambitious plan. I was not content to be merely a bystander in my own life. I had to take charge, to transform pain into profit, to rewrite the story on my own terms. Simultaneously, I began to reconfigure my personal life. The betrayal had left deep scars, and for a long time, I had been adrift in a sea of sorrow and isolation. I sought solace in the support of close friends and family who reminded me of who I was before all of this, an individual with passion, intelligence, and a capacity for greatness that no one's shallow judgments could diminish. I reconnected with old acquaintances who had once admired my work ethic and integrity. Their unwavering belief in me, even when I doubted myself, became the backbone of my resilience. I also engaged in new experiences that enriched my soul. I traveled to places that ignited my creativity, took up hobbies that brought me unexpected joy, and even began speaking at events about overcoming betrayal. Each of these steps was not just a means to heal, but a declaration that I was reclaiming my narrative, one defined by my own success, not by the failures of a shared past. As the months passed, I slowly began to amass the funds needed for my bold new venture. I diversified my investments and cut back on unnecessary expenses, channeling every spare dollar into a fund that would one day allow me to take over the company where her wealthy lover worked. I negotiated tirelessly with financial partners, studied market trends, and even attended exclusive business conferences to network with potential investors. Every time I closed a deal or received a promising lead, a quiet sense of triumph surged through me, a validation that I was not only surviving this betrayal but thriving because of it. Each step forward was a silent rebuke to the past, a statement that my future was not dependent on her validation or her mistakes. But even as my financial prospects brightened, the emotional toll of her betrayal remained. There were days when the sting of her words would catch me off guard, and the memory of that night at our anniversary dinner would flash before my eyes in a painful montage. In those moments, I would retreat into solitude, taking long walks under the starlit sky, meditating in quiet corners, and writing frantically in my journal to purge the remnants of sorrow. I learned to accept that healing was not linear. There would be setbacks, moments of vulnerability that reminded me of the pain I had endured. Yet each time I emerged with a deeper understanding of my own strength, a realization that the scars of betrayal, while permanent, were not chains that bound me. Instead, they were badges of honor, proof that I had weathered the storm and was still standing, ready to claim the future I had fought so hard to build. Throughout this intense period of rebuilding, I also began to share my journey with a small, trusted circle. I held intimate gatherings where I spoke candidly about the betrayal, about the long nights of doubt, and about the gradual, painstaking process of reasserting my own worth. These conversations were raw, emotional, and transformative. Listening to others who had faced similar hardships gave me a sense of solidarity, a reminder that even the deepest wounds could eventually heal and that every setback was a prelude to a resurgence. Their stories mingled with mine, creating a tapestry of resilience that buoyed my spirit and drove me to press forward, no matter how challenging the path. Amid the personal and professional reawakening, I never lost sight of my ultimate goal: to buy the company where her lover worked, not as an act of vengeance, but as a bold declaration that I was taking charge of my future. I started laying the groundwork, discreetly contacting business brokers, and assembling a team of financial experts who could help me navigate the complexities of such an acquisition. Every step in this process was a meticulous, calculated move, a chess game played on the board of my own destiny. I immersed myself in legal documents, corporate valuations, and market analyses, building a strategy that was as formidable as it was precise. I even reached out to former colleagues who had insights into the industry, gathering intelligence that would prove invaluable in my pursuit. With each passing day, the dream of acquiring that company transformed from a vague notion into a concrete, attainable goal. Every small milestone, a promising lead from a broker, a favorable review of the company's financial health, a successful meeting with potential investors, was a victory, a confirmation that I was on the right path. Yet, this pursuit was not without its emotional complexities. I often found myself wrestling with conflicting feelings. There was, of course, a lingering bitterness, a sharp, stinging reminder of the betrayal that had upended my life. But there was also a profound sense of liberation, a realization that I was no longer defined by someone else's actions. I was carving out a new identity, one that was built on my own merits, my own sacrifices, and my unyielding drive to succeed. In quiet moments of reflection, I would remind myself that the success I was building was not a means of punishment, but a celebration of my own resilience. The more I invested in this new venture, the more I saw that every setback had prepared me for this opportunity, that every moment of despair had ultimately led to a deeper, unshakable strength. As the months wore on, my efforts began to bear fruit. The financial pieces of the puzzle started to come together. A growing portfolio of investments, a network of supportive investors, and a clear strategy for acquiring the company. I could see the outlines of a future emerging, one that was bright with promise and defined by my own decisions. Each meeting with a potential investor, every detailed analysis of the company's performance, added to the mounting evidence that my vision was not only possible but inevitable. My confidence grew with every positive report, every encouraging word from someone who believed in my plan. I was no longer the man who had been left behind, I was a force to be reckoned with, a man whose actions were now dictated by a powerful sense of self-worth and a clear, unrelenting goal. And so, in the midst of this whirlwind of professional activity, I continued to nurture my inner world. I maintained my daily routines of exercise, meditation, and journaling, each ritual a reminder that my journey was as much about healing my soul as it was about rebuilding my financial future. I sought out moments of quiet joy, a walk in the park on a crisp afternoon, a soulful piece of music that stirred my emotions, or a long conversation with a friend who reminded me of my own worth. These moments of reprieve allowed me to integrate the lessons of the past with the promises of the future, creating a delicate balance between ambition and introspection. Every day felt like a step further away from the painful memories of that anniversary dinner, where her confession of infidelity had irreparably altered our lives, and closer to a future that I was determined to create. I had transformed my pain into power, my sorrow into a roadmap for renewal, and every moment of betrayal into a stepping stone toward a brighter tomorrow. The journey was long, fraught with setbacks and moments of doubt, but each challenge only solidified my resolve. I was not defined by the mistakes of the past, but by the relentless determination to shape my destiny with my own two hands.